Maybe we need to do like a spot the difference for Jeff. Is this game, even though it has a pixel art style, it's developed by 200 people and has a major corporation backing it, is that an indie game?
Honestly.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the HGO podcast. I'm one of your hosts today, Ethan, and joining me, as always, are my good friends Kyle.
Hello.
And Hunter. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing just swell.
You know, I feel like we should start this show with an apology, okay? I want this one's going out to all of our audio listeners. I'm sorry that somehow we didn't notice that the podcast didn't go up for 4 days last week. But when you think about it, it's your fault you didn't tell us. We didn't find out until Thursday. Like, what are you doing? Like, come on, every day, Monday at 5 p.m. UK time for 12 Eastern, get on that podcast services. Let us know it's there. I don't know what happened. I genuinely don't know. It's as if our podcast provider just had an oopsie and they just forgot to publish it.
Dude, like 3 weeks ago, the same thing happened with my paycheck, where the banks were just like, oh, we got
Same
shot
thing.
in the leg for the week. Everything's
Yeah.
late.
And
My
Hunter's
employer
response was
had
the
to be
exact
like-
same as everybody else, who was like, shrug, I guess I'll wait for it to happen, I guess. Like, well, that's weird.
Oh, what else
Yeah.
can you do?
What else can
And
you do?
my employer was like, we'll write you a check, and then just like they were talking about if I needed the money at the time, I could just take their check, and then they'd like rescind the money that would be coming in on the paycheck because it'd technically be being like double paid. I'm like, nah, it's not a big deal.
You'd
I
be
don't
like,
need
no, I'll
that
take the
right
check
away."
and I'll take the double. This is what you get for crossing with me. And
Yeah.
This is
just
the
so you know,
inconvenience
and
tax.
just so you know, audio listeners, that don't work. So don't you try and play those games either. You're not getting 2 episodes. We've got enough episodes to record as is. But no, I do apologize for that. I don't know what happened, but you've got it now. So go and enjoy it. And if you didn't find it last week and you're wondering where it was, it's live now. We've already checked. It is live everywhere. And thank you for your patience. Hopefully it won't happen again. I'm scared of scheduling things now though, because I'm like, once it doesn't work once, I'm like, oh no, why? It was bizarre.
Yeah, this was probably just a fluke.
Probably.
Glitch
But
in the Matrix.
yeah. But
Yeah.
it happens sometimes. But no, apologies. But we'll move on. As this week, we're diving off of a load of topics that we've been talking about the past couple of weeks. Obviously, with the whole Game Awards situation happening, we're going to be doing our predictions next week on the podcast. So make sure you're tuned in for that if you're looking for those. But obviously, with the whole Dave the Diver shenanigans and all that jazz, people have been having the whole conversation of what's an indie, quote unquote. So
Sparked a
Hunt,
debate that is equally philosophic as it is semantic.
oh yeah, it's brilliant. So Hunter is here, our resident indie expert, to tell us his favorite indie games of the year so far, so you can know what an actual indie is. Because turns out it's not just if it has a pixel art style. It's really crazy, that is.
No.
Jeff can't stop but tell a difference. Maybe we need to do like a spot the difference for Jeff, where we can be like, right,
Honestly.
is this game, even though it has a pixel art style, it's developed by 200 people and has a major corporation backing it, is that an indie game? We'll have to decide on December 8th. It's going to be a fun one. But it's going to be, like I say, we've got a lot of topics to talk about. Another contentious thing, we'll talk about this at the end of the show because I think it's really hilarious, so tune in for this if you're looking forward to it. Is there an Xbox tax? This is stupid. Like, genuinely, we'll talk about it later. But this has been the big gaming controversy. Can't speak. Put my teeth in. Controversy for the week. Kyle is obviously oblivious to nearly all of this because unlike me and Hunter, he's on a better side of the internet than we are. So we'll fill Kyle in on all the shenanigans that's been happening and talk about it in a bit. And also, I finally started Jedi Survivor. It only took 9 months. Who would have guessed? But we're here. So we'll talk about that a
Proud
bit
of
too.
you, Ethan.
You wait till you hear my impressions. But yeah, this is the HGO podcast. We're here every Monday at 12 p.m. UK, 12 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. UK
We got
time.
an Alan Wake review for you to go watch too.
I was gonna get to it. I was getting to it. Don't throw me off my script on podcast services everywhere at youtube.com/hotgamersonly, where you can look at our stupid faces. Housekeeping for you. We have an Alan Wake 2 review out. Wow, it was coming up.
Wow.
On youtube.com. Hunter's done a good job on that. So if you
Tell
want to
me
go
all
check
about
it,
it, Ethan.
it's on YouTube. It's on the website. You can go and check it out. We
Dude,
also
finding
have
the background music for that one was a pain.
I'm sure it was. But it's up now, so you can go and check it out. We've also finally updated our website so that it works, and when a new review goes live, the homepage goes live. So now the website should be better for everybody involved. So go and check that out. You shouldn't notice anything too drastic on your end. It just means that behind the scenes, we literally have about 15 homepages that we were swapping between each time, so it was messy as hell. But it's good now. It's fixed, which you won't see for a long time because video games have stopped releasing now. I always do it at the best of times, so there you go.
I mean,
But
do
yeah,
it at the time when nothing's happening.
yeah, true.
That's
But I
the best
literally,
time to do it.
did it the day we released a review. It wasn't like, oh yeah, calm. Like the storm's over. We can start work now.
Hmm.
Right in the
Also,
middle of
towards
it.
the end of the year on the website, all three of us are going to be posting our top 6 game of the year lists to
We
there.
are.
So stop
We
by
are.
then to check that out as well.
It's going to be fun, and I'm also going to do so there'll be 3 weeks leading up to our usual podcast episode, and on the podcast release day we usually have our fun here where we all individually have a game of the year result, but I'm going to do something fun where we're going to arbitrarily work out once we've got everybody's lists, we're going to score them,
Oh my
and we're
God.
going to do like a theoretically what our game of the year would be due to our arbitrary placings on this stupid rankings
Oh,
list.
we're
It'll be
doing
a
one
fun
of
little
those.
article where we'll have a definitive one that none of us will agree on. It'll be great fun. I'm sure it won't spark a debate, but it'll be fun. But so there's plenty of stuff coming up on the website in December despite no reviews, so be sure to check it out every so often because we do update it quite frequently, so go ahead and check that out. But with that out of the way, let's get started with our main topic of the show this week, which is Hunter's Indie Games of 2023. The reason that we say Hunter is obviously if you're new to the show here, Hunter is kind of our resident indie expert, and what I mean by that is me and Kyle are very we're picky eaters when it comes to video games. Me and Kyle, and it's like sometimes we don't have enough time to test the waters to go and check out all these indie games, and Hunter he's just dipping his toes in everything, dude. He's just like, Hunter, you play more games than anybody I know, which is
Really?
great for a
You
podcast.
do, dude.
It's great for a podcast because it means that a lot of the times when we need impressions from somebody, there's a 90% chance you've played it, but it also is
I'll
bad
also
for
find,
stuff like this.
the most obscure thing you've ever
Yeah.
heard of.
Oh, 100%.
That like 5 people have reviewed.
Drafted for the fantasy critic and score a cool amount of points on it.
Yeah.
But the thing with you is, Hunter, and I mean this in a very sincere and genuine way, you're a very positive person, right? You know, most people would struggle to come up with as much like positive things that you have to say about a lot of video games. And so a lot of the times when we're talking about an indie game, an indie game could be terrible, and Hunter's like, well, I still think it's charming. And I'm like, that's great. Today, we're finding out what the good ones are. I want Hunter's list of the best indie games that he's played in 2023. I can't find my teeth still. So it's going to be fun. I don't know how much prep you've done for this, Hunter. I don't know where you want to start. Is there a ranking?
I've just got my list
Or-
of games that I've played this year pulled up, and
Okay.
I'll pick out the ones that are indies and the ones that and talk about them, I guess.
His list is
Okay.
all just Hades over and over again.
It's not.
What a glorious
you
year
know,
that would be.
There will be a
Do you
couple of
want
games.
to talk at all about the nonsense conversation that has been happening that sparked this topic anyway?
I mean, we can. I think I glossed over it a tiny bit at the start of the section, but essentially, I think it's been interesting this year because there's never really been a debate like this that has been sparked like it has from Dave the Diver, right? Which is essentially the indie nominations for Game Awards this year. We'll get into them next week. Has a game in it called Dave the Diver, which is a game that we've all not played,
I've
but have
expressed
very
great interest in
positive feelings
playing.
towards. Yeah, as soon as we heard about its existence. And the reason this game has caused I don't know if controversy is the correct, but it's caused a conversation in the
A kerfuffle.
industry. A kerfuffle. That's a good word. That's a Hunter-esque word right there.
You're welcome.
Thank you. But it's caused a kerfuffle because the developer, known as Mint Rocket, is actually just a subsidiary, a smaller team in Nexon, which, if you don't know who Nexon is, don't worry, neither did I before this. I'd heard of them, but I didn't know who they were. They're like a major South Korean video game publisher, like huge, like the AAA of AAA
They got
publishers
like
in Korea.
7,000 people working there, I think, was
Yeah.
the Google search.
Hmm.
result.
So it's kind of sparked a conversation between a lot of people, whether that is developers themselves, whether it is stupid people like us, content creators, quote unquote journalists, whatever you want to say. Um, what is an indie game? Really? Is it just the art style? Is it the fact that it's a smaller team? Is it a fact that it's independent? Is that like where are we drawing the line?
I
And it's
feel like this
great.
has now spawned like a whole D&D alignment chart of like 3x3 squares where it's
Oh,
like budget, aesthetic, what middle ground.
Oh, it 100% has. And I think the thing is, as well, is I'm so glad we're having, like, people are having these conversations, because me and Kyle and some of my other friends have had these conversations time and time again where we look at a genre and go, yeah, but what really does define a genre? Like, we've action adventure, RPG, indie, like, there are so many ways to spin these, and you can categorize any modern video game, in my personal opinion, as an RPG because so many of them have stats and level ups. And if that is your way of gauging an RPG, congratulations! Nearly every
Or
AAA
if you
game that
want
isn't a
to like
sports
be
game,
even
you can chuck
more
that in.
pedantic,
It's
it stands for role playing game, and in every game you ever play, you play a role in it.
100%,
dude.
right?
Yeah. So,
And then it's
but
separating JRPGs to Western RPGs and all that. Like, there's some. It's very arbitrary, I think. So I think it's a good idea before we do start this list. Hunter, what would you class as an indie game?
all right. So I found a post that put into words, I think, what I feel about it the best from Imran Khan chimed in at one point on this debate, and
Renowned
he said,
Xenoblade 3 leaker.
yeah, he's
He was a game journalist and is also pretty good at
yeah,
his job, but he was the guy that leaked Xenoblade 3.
yeah, he does great work, but I think at one point he was defining it as a game that could potentially include a partial publisher and financing, but is largely created by a studio without higher corporate interests. And I think that's probably the best way to put it. So, like, you know, games that are published by Annapurna or Devolver, for example, like some people try to disqualify those from being indie because they were published by a publisher, but these
No.
publishers just go and try and basically seek out these projects and help them over the finish line and all of
The
that.
definition of
As
like an A24, they're like that equivalent in the film space as a
yeah,
video game
pretty
space.
much. And like
Um,
alternative to that, like technically you've got larger studios that aren't owned by anybody, so technically they are independent, but I would not be sitting here telling you that Death Stranding or any Kojima Productions
or
game
Baldur's Gate 3.
or
Yeah,
Baldur's Gate.
Larian
Larian
Studios. Yeah.
Larian has like 400 employees. They worked on Baldur's Gate 3 for like 4 or 5 years to make
Mhm.
it, the AAA quality that it is, comparing
Mm.
it to comparing it in a category to
Like I say, it's
Viewfinder
really
is unfair.
it's really interesting, right? Because like I say, I kind of agree. I feel like my whole bearings of it is usually it's even it's a small independent team making a project that is, yes, it can be published by someone larger. It can even like even EA's originals line. When I look at Unraveled and stuff like that, I still consider those indie games because it's just EA going, hey, yeah, we'll publish it. But we haven't told you
Yeah,
to make this
EA
game.
didn't
Mhm.
tell them to make it.
There's no interference. They're not sitting there going, okay. Like,
Yeah, or they didn't like go and look at
I'm of the
Unraveled.
opinion that no one can tell Joseph Ferris what to do, right? But they're not
Yeah.
going over to Joseph Ferris and going, actually, can you make the book with the Spanish accent do this instead? No, EA's not doing
Yeah, they
that. They're
didn't
just
look at
do
Unraveled and go, "Oh, that actually has a soul. You
yeah.
need to change this and make people pay to play it."
But at the same time,
Outside of the
when we look at Joseph Ferris's games, I would consider like Brothers to be on the indie side. But then when it gets to A Way Out and It Takes Two, I think the team has grown to a point, and the kind of the money provided by EA is that substantial that I'd start to then push that out into more of a separate space.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
about
I
drawing that
hear what you're
line.
saying because that's like I would say that's similar to what happened with Returnal, because Housemarque, very much was the twin stick shooter indie arcade kind of studio, and then
Mhm.
Returnal came out and they got the deal with Sony before they got acquired, where very clearly a lot of resources from Sony helped them bring that game up to the production value that it had.
Mm.
It's where I feel it's where the term double A comes in, which isn't a real thing. Double A doesn't actually exist, right? But it's like that's when you're
Certainly
scratching that
not
kind of
anymore.
not certainly not anymore. But it's like it's where you're kind of you know it's that's kind of where the line is drawn where it's like okay, how much are they putting into it? How much is the investment? Is it just a publishing deal? Because like I say, there's so many ways you can go about it, but to me it usually is it's a smaller team that may have help in publishing in broadcasting this game to a wider audience, but it's still at its heart made by a small team on a smaller budget is what I would
Yeah.
define an indie game, right? Dave the Diver, I would not consider an indie game because there's no way in hell that a team, even though it has got a small team behind it, that a game that was developed by Nixon, which was explicitly developed to look like an indie game so that it would kind of draw in that audience,
Mm.
I would not consider that an indie
Yeah,
game.
and like to be fair, I've been tricked by that kind of aesthetic before. Like Box Boy and Box Girl was a game that Kyle likes that
Yeah,
I didn't know who developed it, so I just assumed it was an indie game, and then it turned out to be made by HAL Labs,
yeah,
and
it's
I'm like,
hell.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
oops.
yeah.
But so anyway, I guess moving on to the best indie games I've played this year. Um, First one that jumps to mind, Coffee Talk 2. I really liked this game. I thought it was a good time. I liked the first one when I played it last year. I got the physical version a couple weeks ago, turned it on for about an hour, just in the middle of breaking up Alan Wake playing. And I'm like, oh, yes, I still really like this game. It just got the
Mm.
comfortable vibes of, I don't know, familiarity, I guess, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I can
Mm.
chime in on this one because hello, I actually played this one. Um, yeah, I really liked Coffee Talk. I like Coffee Talk as a concept, to be honest, because and I think it's what indies do best is they kind of take these kind of ideas, these concepts that you would never realistically see in a AAA game, or you'll have like I'm sure that somewhat the creators of Coffee Talk maybe saw a scene where in a video game in the past where someone's been sitting at a bar or you've been sitting one on one with someone and you have an interesting conversation and someone probably just went, "That'd be really cool if the game was just that," and then they
Yeah.
take an
A
idea and
lot
they
of
super
times
home
this
in on it.
kind of idea is like a mini game at best in larger games, but
Yeah,
that doesn't really get the
exactly. And
chance to
it's just they
shine as
take
much.
something super like they zoom in onto it. They're super they just kind of super specific on one thing and they just build up on that and that alone. And I think I really like it. It's a chill game to be honest. The thing about Coffee Talk is my least favorite part of Coffee Talk is making the fucking coffee. Is I like
Yeah.
that's the thing where I'm like, oh god, I've got let me look up my recipes real quick because really I just want to get that out of the way to listen on the conversation, to interact with these people, to see how I can impact their lives and what their stories and kind of how their stories are unfolding. It's an interesting kind of
I think
dynamic, really.
something upon, coming back to it that they do really good is making the world, despite the fact that you never leave the coffee shop, they make the world feel so broad.
Mm, yeah. And I mean, I think it's because of the characters that you have, right? Whether it's Gala who works at the hospital, or you have got Ethan tried to remember names of video game characters challenges. You've got the vampire
Hyde is a
guy who is a
vampire
model.
who's a model. Aqua's this sea creature lady. I don't know
Myrtle,
if
game
they
developer.
specified her. Yeah, and Myrtle's the orc who's helping her
Yeah.
make her game and all of that. And like
Yeah, yeah,
it's just it
Bailey's
manages
and
to
Luna, and yeah,
yeah.
I'm remembering names. It must be good. Ethan's
Yeah, there you
remembering
go.
names, guys. It must be good. Um, but yeah,
But they do a
it's
great job at just making it personal for all these people and making it feel like, yeah, this world is big enough that you could find just about anybody walking in here that'd be fascinating.
yeah, it's a really cool kind of game. It's also a very short game. They're also both available on Game Pass, I believe, still as of recording. So if you're on Xbox, get that Xbox bias out of your heads and go and pick it up and play it. It's a lot of fun. Um,
Yeah.
I like them quite a bit. I do think Oh, it's hard. It's like looking back at them now, I'm like, I don't know which one I liked better because I think one is more succinct, but then I like a lot of the stuff they do in two as well. So it's like it's one of those ones where it's like depending on how I'm
It's
feeling.
hard for me too because like I think maybe two brought in just a little bit more positive feeling because of the on the back of what one had established. But
Hmm.
you know, they're both really great regardless. Uh
Anyway, what's next on your list?
next up, this was a real short game I played called It Comes in Waves. This is the most indie you can get. This is like one guy, Antonio, I don't know how to say his last name. It's like Freyri or Freyre. I don't
Hmm.
Merlino Games is the developer title there. But this game it's like maybe an hour, maybe like 45 minutes to an hour. It just got put out one day, and I think someone I was following for a horror game retweeted it one day, and I'm like, oh, that looks kind of cool because it looks like aesthetically it looks like a PS1 era like game taken from like the vibe of the desert areas in Star Wars, essentially. Like you look like one of those scavenger kind of people, and you're just like you're this exile that's been banished, and you got to go nurse this. They're very vague about it, an organism to a full health or something, and and it does this cool idea where it's like, ah, yes, there are points of interest in all of this, and it's a world that kind of beckons you to explore, but also the mechanics are fighting you off of exploring at every turn, where it's like you've got a thirst meter and a health that will go down when if you don't find all of this water and stuff and all of that. And it's this
Hmm.
interesting like dichotomy of what it might be encouraging you to do by what seems interesting as opposed to what the mechanics of the game would have you be doing.
Hmm.
And it also, the little story he manages to tell in there is neat.
No, fair enough. Like I say, I always love the stories that you get from indie games, especially when it's like a one person team and they just manage to create this kind of little passion project, and you're just like,
It's just something they
Mm.
feel like they need to say, and I feel
or
like
just something that
that's
they feel like they really want to like they see a get they want a game that isn't out there and they just work their ass off and just making something, and you're just like, wow, what, how? Like a lot of times I just look at games and I'm like, how? Like I struggle to sometimes comprehend that a team of 100 people somehow managed to pull this off in like 2 or 3 years. And then I look at something like that, or like the big one always will be for me is fucking Eric Barone with Stardew Valley, and you're like, how the hell did you do that? You're one fucking guy. How? Like music, visuals, everything. I'm like, how'd you do it? Like
oh yeah,
genuinely.
when especially
How?
they make the music and stuff too, and they're like, I'm like, just you're a multi-talented person. That was always Lone Survivor for me. It was the man made a very cool 2D horror game, and then also made a very cool soundtrack to go with it. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah, or it's just
it
like,
didn't
yeah,
even need to
Toby
be
Fox with
shopped
Undertale
out.
and stuff like that, where you're just like, damn, you might be a better composer than you are a game designer. And I'm like, but they're still both brilliant. I'm like, how? Like, you just like, honestly, the way indie devs somehow just managed to use their lack of resources to just kind of spark creativity and not do so. And like, I'm not sitting there going, oh, this game's great, but God, the music's a bit shit. You're just like, no, you somehow nailed that as well. I'm like, damn, like, God, so talented, man, so talented. But yeah, add that one to your list, especially because, like I say, I haven't heard many people talking about it, so go check that out.
Yeah.
What have you got next?
Oh, then, yeah. This is just going in sequential order from the year. Took a bit of a break until Sea of Stars came out, as far as games
Mm,
were concerned.
perfect.
But yeah, Sea of Stars, it, it looked like it was going to be great, and it exceeded even the expectations of the developers as far as what people thought of it. Very classic, old school RPG kind of game there, evocative of Chrono Trigger and all of that. The manages to set itself up like a classic hero's journey, and then there's a twist about a third of the way through that makes it more interesting than just that.
Mm.
Mm.
Now, what we have an interesting thing here is because Kyle's also played this video game.
I
Uh,
have.
I wasn't
I
here when this was going down. I did listen to the
you
podcast, but that's like 2 months ago. Ethan's had a sleep since then. You think I remember anything about that podcast, mate? No
There was a
do you
chance.
whole
think I remember
Starfield
anything
between now
about
and
it?
then.
All I remember was I swear I don't remember. I don't remember anything. I'm not going to pretend to remember anything other than people being like, "Hey, that game's very pretty."
Mm,
Um,
it is
how
really pretty.
you never finished it, Kyle? So what
I did not.
was there any particular reason?
I don't know. Did something else come out around that time?
Probably. Okay.
Probably.
I wanted to know if it was
I
something
don't know.
personal. I just wanted to know if you had
No,
beef with the
no,
game or if you just fell off
I
it.
liked the game. I thought the game was fun. I just either got tired or moved on to something else.
No, that's fair.
I don't know.
That's fair.
Let's look back
It
at the
happens,
playground.
dude. It happens. You just
But
like
yeah,
sometimes the game just doesn't click with you. It's good.
Yeah.
it manages to provide just about anything I'd want from an RPG. Solid characters. Every song on the soundtrack is a winner. I think that so far it's got the best version of that HD 2D style that Octopath popularized for
You know,
RPGs.
is today a good day to start a war?
No,
No,
sure.
is any day a good day to start a war?
Well,
No, but I mean more of a I mean more
Right
of a
after
video.
Thanksgiving,
I
Ethan?
mean a video
Really?
game. You know, Thanksgiving doesn't exist for me. Okay, like you can take your Thanksgiving and shove it, dude. Like, I don't care. I'm not thankful for anything. I'm British, mate. Um,
boy.
but no, it's like I like HD 2D, and I like that. But like, especially with Square doing it, and I know this is completely off topic with indies, but I'm kind of at the point now where I'm like, okay, do something else with it or fuck off.
I
Like I'm
see.
like
I get
I'm
what you're
burnt out on
saying.
it. I'm burnt out on it. I
I know
really
what you
am.
mean.
I mean, I
'Cause,
still think
like,
games like Triangle Strategy and Octopath 2 still look beautiful. Live Alive looks great, but
Here's the
something
thing.
like
I
Star
don't.
Ocean that just came out, the Star Ocean remake, that just looks like they took it and just bumped up the saturation or the bloom like as much as high as it could go. And I'm like, this doesn't look good at
Oh, and
all.
don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the games are ugly, but I'm saying that I feel like developers are starting to use HD 2D, especially Square. This isn't mainly an indie thing. This is mainly Square when I look at stuff. And I'm like,
Well, they're the ones
you've
that
got
started it.
yeah, they have started it, but what they did, Kyle, was they made a game called Octopath Traveler. And
Yeah,
they
it was
made an
great. I
art
loved
style for
it.
this game called Octopath Traveler. And then if they
Yeah.
had used the same art style and made a sequel called Octopath Traveler 2, then I would have been like, wow, this is a nice little series that they've got that has a really unique art style. It's a shame that Square Enix keeps making other fucking video games and not only copy paste the same art style, but literally not doing anything to make any of them look unique from each other. So now, if you were to give me a picture of Triangle Strategy, Octopath 1, Octopath 2, Deerfield Bollocks, whatever it fucking is, whatever these games are.
Geofield was anti
What was the other one that they
HD2D.
made?
That was
Was HD2D?
SD3D.
Oh, that was
Uh,
SD3D. My apologies.
yeah. Star Ocean, is that Undersquare or is that someone different?
That's under Square.
Yeah, that's
But
the
they've
one
got
that
a
just
load of them.
came
You could
out.
literally they Square just keeps making these HD2D games. I think the problem is the oversaturation and them not actually doing anything other than HD 2D to make it look like a style. So now what made Octopath look unique is now just every fucking pixel game that Square Enix makes.
I mean,
And
I
it's
know
just
what you
like
mean because like cycles like this happen all the time. Remember when back in like after Super Meat Boy came out, indie games for a little while just became hard 2D platformers,
yeah.
Or
and
like
that was it.
after Undertale, everything just became Earthbound like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens and
So
it's like
It's
something
called
like CS
chasing a trend. You see
I
it in
feel like yeah, but I
everything.
feel like back onto Sea of Stars, I think what Sea of Stars does great is it uses color and it uses vibrance and it uses unique kind of visuals to kind of get around that when it's like even though we've been oversaturated with these pixel art kind of RPGs recently, Sea of Stars to me still stands out on its own, whereas stuff
yeah,
that Square Enix has
like
done all kind of blends into a thing that's still pretty. I still think Octopath Traveler 2 looks way too good to be on the Nintendo Switch. I think that's illegal.
down to
But I
the
also can't
character
lie and say that
designs
everything that
even of
Square has done
Sea of
with it
Stars. Like
just
I think
looks
they
meh.
did a good job at making it look like everyone looks very classic, or they look like a kind of classic
Like a SNES
style there,
RPG.
but it feels like they all have enough of their own spin on it
Yeah.
to be like I could pick them out of a lineup of other characters in their archetype.
Where if you literally gave me every sprite from Triangle Strategy and Octopath 1 and 2 and went, pick the Triangle Strategy ones, I would literally be like, just fire the gun, just put it into my head and shoot me. Like, I'm not got a chance here, mate. No chance at all. But like I say, I still think Sea of Stars is an extremely good looking game, and it's a testament to its visuals that even though it seems like even big developers, larger developers who are making these kind of remakes or reimaginings of old school RPGs, it still manages to find its own visual style and personality. I think it's very cool. It's been on my PS5, I think, for a while. I don't know if I re-downloaded it, but it was on my old PS5 that died in a ball of flame.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if it's on my new one, but it's a potential. Maybe one day I'll give it a try. But I've heard nothing but great things. People thought it being nominated for Game of the Year, but no indie pick this year.
No, this year's just
Now just
locked
Baldur's
out.
Gate.
Don't worry, we'll have a rant about that next week. Stay tuned. I'm gonna have such a rant about Game of the Year next year. Next week is gonna be great. I can't wait. Anyway, I've rambled enough about not the indie game. Carry on, Hunter. What's next on the list?
The next one is everyone's favorite goofy title, AK-xolotl.
Gunbrella.
Not yet.
Damn it.
Damn, it's AK-xolotl.
Yeah, AK-xolotl. I feel like this game got reviewed harshly.
There's always one, isn't there? There's one every year.
Hey,
It's
I got
like,
a point out of it on Fantasy
like,
Draft.
What was
Yeah,
it?
but I feel
we
like
take those.
Yeah, you
like
can fuck off.
What does
it
it
deserved
feel like?
it deserved to
Feels
be
like nothing.
it deserved to be over that line. I feel like
Better
it was a
than
very
Crash Team Rumble.
I don't know. I didn't.
I will still stand by this. We'll get to this next month. I still stand by Crash Team Rumble also being too harshly reviewed for a 69. It does not deserve a 69. Still waiting. I will. Kyle, we'll look back at this in like 3 years if we ever get on Open Critic. I'm hoping that number
what
just
content
dumps
does it
up.
have, Ethan?
Yeah.
What content does it have now, Ethan?
Right. Hear me out. If you were to ask me to review Crash Team Rumble right now,
Yeah.
then yeah, I think a 69 is fair.
Yeah.
If you were to ask me what
There
it was
you
like
go.
at launch with the hope, I would have put it higher.
The hope. Well, the problem is I don't
You
think
did
anyone
review
else
it with
who
hope.
reviewed it.
I did. I
had
gave
hope.
it an 8. I basically gave it an 8.
Anyway, AK-xolotl, the goofy roguelike, projectile panic kind of game there, where you take the axolotl, you get your gun, you run through a dungeon. The thing that I kept taking away from this game, because it's not very mechanically deep as far as that. You just kind of point your gun and acquire your buffs and all of that. But the thing that set it apart from other games like this is just the general charm of it. The overall silliness of the idea of, controlling an axolotl who is also a gun-toting maniac tickles me to no end.
I still think AK-xolotl is a great pun as well. I still stand by that. In fact, I feel like we need to sign a petition for in real life baby axolotls, like, lamb to sheep. We need axolotl to be an actual scientific term.
I agree. But yeah, like, it's not, like the mechanics weren't super deep. They've continued to support it, I've seen, like, on
which was always
Twitter
the
and whatnot.
intention. It was the intention.
Yeah, so I'm sure if I went back and like played it or did a run through a dungeon now, it would be a different experience to what it was back in September when I first did it, because they've went through. Suddenly I'd be picking up probably a gun that shoots like exploding pumpkins or something, because they were updating for Halloween and they moved on to a winter themed thing now.
Yeah.
So like it's gotten a chance to grow. I feel like the more that time passes, the more that like picking up the game would be an even better sell, because there's going to be more stuff to do. I played it when it was the most barren, and I still got some enjoyment out of it, as far as that's concerned. But yeah, the thing that will always amuse me about this one was Well, mechanically very simple. I'd say it's an easier game than Hades. I got stuck on that first boss because I was an idiot. Just like my brain was scrambled, I guess, while I was playing it. And it took me like 12 attempts to beat the first boss. And I'm like, what's my problem? But
no,
yeah,
yeah,
AK-xolotl. A fun time.
go check it out. I assume is Gunbrella next.
Gunbrella is next, the other of the duo of silly titles that are gun-based. Gunbrella's atmosphere was super cool as far as like it's this kind of like I'm not really sure how to describe it in a word, but like you've got a railroad going through all of the map, and that's always cool because trains in video games are sick. But it's true.
You know what I said earlier that Hunter can find a positive about fucking anything in video games? Like, that's what I genuinely mean. It's like Hunter just like, I see train, I think thumbs up from me, dude. Like that's like what, why do
Well,
we
on
get
top
Hunter
of
to
that,
write
like,
reviews? He's just like train good, 4 out of 5. Like there we go.
Well, on top of that, the way that the titular Gunbrella controls is really cool. Like as far as it gives you a form of control over your jumps that I don't really see a lot in platformers, where instead of just dashing in a single direction, you can kind of like dash and go kind of like a little curve upwards and all of that, rather than just the hard diagonal. It made for interesting traversal on top of like the satisfying. It's the sound effects attached to the Gunbrella were very satisfying. Just shooting things with the shotguns always feel great when they get the sound right in games, and this one succeeded at that. And it had this, its writing was very tongue-in-cheek in a lot of ways overall. Like there was a cult that was called the Cult 45.
That's very good. That's very good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it was real good. And like there was a whole side quest when you're invading this cult. You're raiding the base to go and get a hint on whatever the overarching goal was. Someone asked you to try and find their friend that was taken by them, and you don't really get the opportunity to free them until right after you beat the first boss. And you don't even really have a chance to ignore this happening at all, but you go and open the door to their cell, and then suddenly one of the eldritch demons that this cult was summoning just comes by and eats them. And I'm like, well, that was funny, but also that's messed up. It's like a comedic version of what happens in Bloodborne or Nier, where all your side quests die.
The classic FromSoft side quest, my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. But so yeah, and it was a very brief experience. They managed to keep iterating on what they were doing throughout the levels, and it didn't overstay its welcome. I think it was like an 8-hour game or something.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I would just like, before we move on, I just want to add on that Gunbrella was made by a developer team called Doinksoft.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Oh, don't worry. I've got
it's a great name.
I've got
the game they made before that was called Gato Roboto.
Ooh. What's that about?
I imagine.
Oh man, this looks great.
I imagine it's about a cat piloting a mech, but I could be
it's
wrong.
on the Nintendo Switch.
I never really looked into it.
Is that you? So is there enough one, Hunter? Have you played any of this?
Oh yeah, I've got a couple more because
fucking hell, he's got the 6 million indie games, dude. Jeez.
Yeah. Like,
calm down, Hunter.
I could split my top 10 list this year into indie and not indie.
Right, we might have to we might have to fire off some quick fire then.
All right, I'll skip over Amnesia because I talked about that.
Did Amnesia come out this year?
Yeah.
Damn, we're old.
Damn, bro.
We're old. And I can be more brief about these other ones anyway, because I recently talked about them. Dredge, the fishing eldritch monster game there.
Yeah, I remember that
cool atmosphere. It manages to have the world that was enticing enough to make me go, ooh, I want to play this. And then the mechanics of the game got me trapped into just, oh, this makes my brain happy when I catch the fish and going back and sell them. So
When I catch the fish, like, oh my god.
Makes
Okay.
my brain go ooh.
that's what happens. It's a very addicting trap to fall into. Like
Okay,
In another
but
life, Hunter was a fisherman.
like I could have cut maybe 3 hours off of my playtime of this game if I had focused solely on the goals of what it was asking me to do. Because very often when I turned on the game, I would just go to the nearest little fishing location that was shining and just catch all of the stuff and take it back for like 15 minutes. But yeah, Dredge was super cool. It had like the cool horror stories that take place on like a coastal area always feel like they've got a different vibe than other than other places. Like there's something especially unique about seafaring horror stories, I feel. Mostly because the ocean contains creatures that probably shouldn't exist or don't seem like they should exist if you go down far enough.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So bringing that up in any form of video game is always cool when they do that. And yeah, it was an overall fun game. I'm glad it kept the juice as far as the attention of the people to get nominated this year, because I figured it might be one that got forgotten. Uh, yeah, after Dredge, Viewfinder, I just talked about like a week or two ago. The cool puzzle game about taking the pictures and imprinting them onto reality and all of that. They
Yep.
managed to keep iterating on that really well.
Ironically, I know I was like, oh, there's another game that I remember called it was Superliminal that I remembered in the end. Added to PS Extra this week as of recording. So there you go. I don't know why I wanted to bring that up, but hey, there's another indie game that did that, which I thought didn't get received that well. Apparently, it was received very well, and I've got a terrible memory. What's new? But so there you go.
Well, you see, the problem is that like I forget what game I tried to guess when you were talking about that, but it was one that was like it or something. And I was like, that one I don't think got reviewed very well because there were other games.
There's
like
one
it
of
that
them,
came
but it
out.
wasn't Superliminal. That game's
Yeah, it
apparently
wasn't
great
Superliminal.
and is on PS Extra if you have a PS5 and give Sony stupid amounts of money for no fucking reason to play online. There you go. Have fun.
But yeah, Viewfinder super cool. It manages to keep its mechanics fresh throughout its couple-hour runtime there, and they managed to. And every time they introduce one of these, it works just as well as you would hope it does, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
always, which was always the kind of question mark when I saw this game was, but will it actually feel as good as it looks?
Yeah,
And it did, so that's good.
that's good.
And then lastly, I've got The Last Faith here, which was the one I just finished last week. The kind of 2D took equal inspirations from Castlevania and then Bloodborne is what the developers kept touting it as. And yeah, I thought it was real cool. Really sets itself apart from other ones by all of the weapons and stuff being more combat focused or giving you at least more things to do in combat than a lot of these games tend to. Or even down to like Metroid or something, the combat basically boils down to the number of missiles that you have.
Yeah.
Which, is very simple and effective, but this one, it's got the whole like Dark Souls stat thing where it's like increase the dexterity for the quicker stuff and all of that. And the strength if you want to smash things with the giant hammer, etc. So they've got that whole system. They had the extra endings and stuff to go seek out too if you wanted to do that. I managed to find the bosses in question to get the true ending, so that
Fair
was
enough.
nice.
Cool.
I feel like this is maybe a symptom of a lot of games like this, but I feel like the level design kind of started to dip down a little bit in the second half. Like, I'd say that this
I
was
feel like
even
you can
something
say that about a
happened.
lot of video games onto this year. I feel like we're going to
Yeah.
be having a conversation next week where we go, this game was pretty great, but man, did the second half kind of dip down in quality there. I can genuinely think of
I
about
feel like I
6
could even
games I've
apply
played
that
this
to.
year.
I love
Yeah.
Bloodborne, but when the moon dropped, I feel like it got less like maybe like the nightmare after that and the city that you're going back through the city once the moon came down. I feel like that was less fun.
Oh, it's always that's what a lot of games. They at that point they've got you. At
Yeah.
that point they've got the
You're in
goofy
too deep.
goblins that are like in too deep. They're like, I've got to finish this off now. I've put 30 hours in. Like you know,
Yeah.
you just you
Yeah.
got to do it.
So
But
yeah, I felt like it fell victim to that, unfortunately. But I got over it. I still had a great time overall. It made up for it with the bosses being plenty of fun.
no, fair enough.
Yeah. And there you have it.
And I feel like we'd be remiss to not mention this game because I have played about an hour and a half of it, so I will talk about it. Pizza Tower that came out in January.
Oh, right.
Um,
I've been waiting for that to come to a console, but
which it still
looks
hasn't.
great.
Maybe one day. I probably think it will next year. And if it hasn't come to consoles next year, there's another WarioWare like called Anton Blast, which is coming to Switch definitely next year because they kickstarted the PC and the Switch version, and that game also looks very good. But Pizza Tower, man, what a fucking again, really small team. Kyle, if you like funny developer names, remember guys, Pizza Tower's developer named themselves after the game, which they decided to call themselves Tour de Pizza, which I still think is really fucking funny.
It's amazing.
But yeah, so yeah, Pizza Tower is it's a big kind of love letter to like Wario Land and those kinds of video games, where you essentially are a you are a chef called Peppino who is basically stuck in the pizza tower, and you have to go through levels, and and it's just a really fast-paced platformer. And not only again is the music fantastic, not only are the animations so goofy and weird and brilliant, they're basically all hand drawn and fantastic. I love them quite a bit. But not only that, and the soundtracks, but the gameplay is so solid. Like it just feels good to play that game. And I think the whole idea behind it is obviously like similar games in in this kind of ilk. You get to the end, you grab the thing, and the whole idea is you have to run through the whole level backwards to get to the end before the timer runs out as the whole place collapses. As it plays basically just plays hype music, and you just have to run all the way to the end. And my favorite part about it is it has this whole gameplay mechanic where you can run past the exit and it'll take you through basically a portal, and you do a second lap. And to get the S rank on every level, you not only have to be quick enough to get to the exit, you have to run through it all again and do it twice. And it's like it's such a good platformer. And I feel like we say this a lot about indie 2D platformers, right? There's so many of them and they're all very good, but man, Pizza Tower is exceptional, and I think there's a reason there was a massive amount of buzz in January about it, and I think it's for good reason. It's a fantastic little game.
I'm glad that people still remembered that one to nominate it too, because I was worried that like
for best
after,
debut indie it got.
like after
yeah.
January, I stopped hearing stuff, and I'm like, oh, sad. But
I mean, I knew that, I thought that most people would, and we'll talk about it next week. I think it has an extremely high chance, if not that, like, I think it has a very high chance of winning that debut indie category.
Yeah.
Just from fan reception alone. It has over 42,000 reviews on Steam, which is
nice.
For an indie game made by genuinely, I think it's 3 to 5 people. Again, that is that's an extreme amount of copies sold. It's crazy. And hey, even if they don't win, they've won a lot of fans.
Yeah.
They've won a lot of fans from Pizza Tower, and I'm sure whatever they do next will be fantastic. And yeah, I look forward to playing it properly when it comes to consoles at some point in the future, which I'm sure it will show up on Switch at some point next year. I can almost guarantee it.
I've been waiting for that to be like at the end of one of the indie worlds that have happened this year, but the past couple of those have just been sizzle reels, and I'm like, You guys gotta stop ending on these.
Dude, I just love when people, like I say, because there's Anton Blast as well. I just love that two different development teams had. There's this idea to be like, we want to do a Wario Land kind of game, and they both went in different directions with it,
Yeah.
and they've both managed to make something that both look great and both have their own distinctive style and personality and way to deal with it. And like, damn, that's Wario Land fans, you're eating good for once in your life. Like, congratulations! Like, you're getting two great games within the span of a year, and I can't wait to play both of them, dude. They both are fantastic. But yeah, so there you go. There's a list of a load of indie games that you should play that were great in 2023. And I'm sure there are hundreds more that we didn't even cover, which is the beauty of indie games. And also the sad part of indie games a lot of times, because, man, I'm sure that like the amount of games that don't get the coverage they deserve sometimes, man. I'm sure there's some really good stuff out there.
There was a back in 2020, Spelunky 2 came out like the week before Hades hit its 1.0 release.
Oh no!
And I was like, oh, well, that's tough.
You know, the interesting, the interesting thing is, are we gonna like? I understand Hades 2 still made by Supergiant, which was still a small team.
23 people.
23 people. Will we class Hades? Well, this will be the debate next year. Will we class Hades 2 as an indie game still? This will be the debate. This will be the great debate.
I mean, I don't think having a
If
lot of
there's
hype behind it
still
suddenly
an
erases.
independent company.
Yeah, if there's still
then
23 people and
Yeah, but after
not
this,
owned by
after the
anybody.
conversations this year, Kyle, I feel like there's going to be a lot. Like, I feel like there's going to be a
I don't know, is
controversy.
Silksong disqualified?
Yeah.
I'd also hunt it. After this year, I would honestly place money on people trying to start a controversy about this next year if either of them come out, which, let me be frank, I don't think either of them, like, Hades has a chance of coming out in early access next year. Hollow Knight is not coming out next year. But I think there'll be an interesting conversation. I think this Dave the Diver situation will fuck up indie nominations for the Game Awards for a good few years.
Oh my god.
I think there'll be plenty of discussion.
I can't wait to have the reverse of this Dave the Diver argument where they're going, no, you idiots, Hades is still an indie game.
Yeah, but Hades made it. Yeah, literally, people will talk like, but Hades made $1 bajillion, guys, so it can't count. They have too much money.
Doesn't change the logistics.
That just means you did a good job.
It will to the internet. It will to the internet. Anyway. Let's move on. This podcast has been too darn positive. By gosh. Let's talk about something more fun. I've finally started Star Wars Jedi Survivor. When did this game come out? Was it April? When did this game come out? And I didn't play it.
April 28th.
Lest we forget, let's hold EA and Respawn to this. This game came out not in the best state.
I had enemies disappearing before I touched them.
Yeah. It did not come in a great state. And I think, first of all, looking back at it, realistically, I honestly, with the way that November has been, because November was, all things considered, pretty quiet. And December, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, who gives a shit about
Yeah, who
that?
cares about that?
I think they could have had their December date that they had last time and been perfectly fine, and I think it would have actually garnered more attention now than it would have
probably
back then.
And like considering the way that this year has been, like trying to get it out to appeal for awards is a fruitless task anyway, because like
yeah,
you know,
it didn't
I feel
happen.
I don't know what's coming out next year. That I don't have a very great idea, but they'd have a better shot at whatever that is than
we
this
can look
year.
We can look to the past, right? We can look to the past as an example and do it. If this year was 2017, next year will be our equivalent of a 2018, which I'd like to think of as, and if you don't believe me, I think this is 100% true, because Rockstar's coming back, which is genuinely the year after Breath of the Wild and all that. Rockstar came back with Red Dead, so they're doing it again with GTA, where I think we'll have a couple of really incredible games, if not some games that we might be going, hey, they may be even better than last year's games. But I don't think we're going to get hit in the head with a 90 every month like we have this year, you know? So I think they would have had a better chance next year, to be honest, to at least be recognised, right? Because, yeah, we always talk about the the God of War versus Red Dead hype, right? The Game of the Year
Yeah.
nominations. Who will it be? Who will win? We don't know. But let's be real here. Point a gun to my head and to ask me what the other 4 games were that were nominated, and I'd have to sit there and think a while. I'd
Celeste
be
was
like,
one of them.
Celeste was the indie pick. I'm like,
Yeah.
did Spider-Man
Was
get a
Spider-Man-
nom?
Spider-Man did, yeah.
Okay,
But
but you know what I mean, where it's like there was a couple of big hitters, but I feel like Jedi
think
could have been. I feel like Jedi could
Smash
have been
Brothers
one of
was
the 3
too
or 4.
late.
Kyle, don't laugh.
No, I'm just looking at Game of the Year 2018.
What was it?
What were the
It was Red Dead,
rest of them?
God of
You
War,
got God of
Spider-Man,
War, God of
Celeste.
War, Celeste, Spider-Man, Red Dead, Monster Hunter World,
Oh,
and
Okay.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Right, hear me out. I don't think it's going to be that bad. Guys, I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think we're going to be fine. I think Final Fantasy VII will be one of them as well. So I think we're
Mhm.
fine. I think we'll live. But there are a couple of games this year where I'm like, I include Star Wars in it, where I'm like, you could have been pushed quite a bit. I don't think everyone laughed as Suicide Squad literally yeeted themselves out of a year. Like they were just like, yeah, guys, this game's stinky. We'll see you next year. Like, just we don't want to be a part of this. But I don't blame them in a lot of ways, because it was like, yeah, you weren't going to get any traction this year. You might not next year, so you might as well
I don't think
take
that
your
game's ever
chances.
getting
Though.
traction.
God willing, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Its tires have been removed.
Yeah. Its tires are boxes.
It makes me sad though, because every time I watch a cutscene from that game, I'm like, why does it? I'm like, I look at it and it has that Rocksteady charm and it has everything that I want from it, and then it
Yeah, but
goes
then go
straight
watch
back
the
to
game of
yeah.
the game.
Yeah, and then you go straight back to the gameplay, and you're like, oh, you fucking ruined it. Why? Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. So yeah, Jedi Survivor came out in a really buggy state. And I refused to play it, not because of the bugs, but because the performance mode was doo-doo, and Ethan was on his fucking high hill of, I ain't playing 30 FPS, that shit's stinky, I will wait. And I waited, and then they finally fixed it in around September. It was while I was still in the States. And I was like, oh, I won't have time to play it when I come back, because the swarm of video games started. So I was like, I'll wait. And eventually, it came down to finally starting it. And I think the biggest compliment I can give Star Wars Jedi Survivor at the moment, after playing around 4 hours of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, is they did fix that performance mode. It runs good now.
Ooh.
But people have been saying, oh, was Jedi Survivor robbed of, like, it's not getting enough praise or whatever. And from the first 4 hours, first of all, I want to say the first 2 hours are fucking bad. Like, they're not good from a story perspective.
Introductory mission, man.
It's not very good.
It was like everything I didn't want. Who are these new people? Why are they here?
They do the classic
That's
thing.
not what my ship looked like.
They do the classic thing of they introduce 5 people and you're like, yes, I know you're all going to die within the hour because I've never heard of you.
Where's Marin?
I'm like, yeah, you're not going to make it. Did they make it? Did they not make it? I don't know if we're far enough away from the game release to say that at the moment. You can probably guess. But, yeah, the first couple of hours aren't too hot. And then once I started getting into it, I'm like, okay, this is fine. But we'll get into this next week. And I feel like the biggest problem I've had with gaming this year is we've had some incredible games, right? We genuinely have. Spider-Man 2, fantastic video game. I'm not going to say Baldur's Gate 3 because I haven't played it. I'm not going to act like I've played it. But, it's a great game. Sequel. Spider-Man 2, great game, but it's more Spider-Man. It's a sequel. And I think the biggest issue I have with Jedi Survivor is, it's Fallen Order again. And I didn't love Fallen Order. I liked Fallen Order. I thought Fallen Order was a decent game. I'm like, this is a good starting point. There's things that I absolutely think are awful, but that's teething issues. They'll fix the shitty map in the second one. We'll just roll over that. And then I play this game, and I press the touchpad, and not only does it not pause the game like it did in the first one? It's the same shitty map that I hated from the first one, and it's not any better. They added markers that you can add to the map, and I'm like, that wasn't what I was asking for. I was asking for a good map, not markers on a shitty map. Thank you. It just feels like it's the same fucking game, but they added open world areas, and I don't like that. Like it feels a bit. It's good, and the gameplay's fine. The gameplay is solid. I like lightsabers. Thank God they give you all your stances back within like 2 hours, because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, they've taken my stances away. I'm gonna
The
be
dual
angry.
wielding thing got fully expanded into its own thing too, which was nice. I think in general the combat feels much better in this game.
It does feel better. Like, it does feel better. It feels more solid. I feel like the parry window, I feel like they've refined that a bit, because I felt like parrying in the first game was always a hit and miss, whereas this one, it feels a lot more akin to its Souls-like kind of inspirations, where a lot of the times if I miss something, I'm like, that's on me, that isn't on the shitty game.
Like if you missed one this time, you would know whether to adjust to be quicker or
yeah, I'm sitting there going, I'm early or
as
I'm late.
opposed to well, in the other game, I feel like it was like I don't know which direction to go to not get hit here.
Oh, 100%. And I feel like there's stuff like that that's a lot better, right? But it is that kind of... My biggest gripe with this game is it's more Fallen Order, which is fine. But my least favourite parts of Fallen Order, I kind of excuse the first time playing, because I hadn't played a Souls game in my life. A lot of the things that... The teething issues that I have is, now that I've played Bloodborne and I've played Elden Ring, between playing the original Star Wars Jedi and coming into this one, is I see the inspiration, right? I see the bonfires, I see the stuff like that. And it's, when you were talking about when Hunter, you were talking about how like the level design kind of drops off a cliff in the second half of the games at times. I feel like this game is what if somebody made a second half of a fucking Dark Souls game, and that was the level design period of the whole fucking game, right? Where it's trying to be so many things. The Jedi Survivor, same with Fallen Order, but I feel like it's juggling so many things. It's trying to be a narrative Uncharted-like adventure. It's trying to be a Souls kind of difficult-esque experience. It's trying to be open world. It's trying to be... There's all these kinds of things, and I'm just sitting here going, if you stopped juggling all 20 of these balls and fucking threw 15 to the side and just started, take 5 of those ideas and really nail them, I'd be liking you a lot more. I don't really care about exploration in this game. I don't. Oh, what's over on that path? Oh, it'll be a shitty lightsaber hilt or a stupid costume. And I'm like, that's fine. Did I really have to go and explore 5 minutes so I could have a different beard length? No, I don't need that.
My favorite part was I feel like whatever it was just enticing enough as far as the way they positioned everything to get me to be like, guess I'm gonna go over there and get it.
Yeah.
And I got a hairstyle that I didn't use because you get the best one 2 hours in.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't think Jedi Survivor is a bad game. In fact, I'd say it's a good game. So far, in terms of quality, it's better than the first one, which is good, right? It's good. But I've been sitting here this whole year going, oh man, a lot of people, they really like Jedi Survivor. Have I been sitting on something that I would have really liked? Is this whenever I think of sequels, I always go back to having that original experience of playing the original Assassin's Creed and then going to Assassin's Creed 2 and going, this is what I wanted from the first one. I'm so happy right now. And then when I see more linear sequels like this, I'm always like, oh, that's fine, I guess, but you're also doing the thing that a lot of sequels do, where you're like, you don't have to have played the first one to play this. Look, we're going to split the band up. You're going to have your default Jerry fucking costume again. Your lightsaber's going to be blue again because we don't know what you've played. It would have been really nice. And so many games have done this. So many sequels have done this. Just put a fucking menu at the start going, have you played Jedi Fallen Order? click yes, and either one, import my save, or two, go, what color was your lightsaber? Get, do you know how much it throws me out to then be handed this Cal Kestis who has a generic blue lightsaber again? I'm like, we went on a journey to make my own lightsaber in this fucking final act of that game, and I got to choose my own color and all that jazz, and you just went, yeah, fuck that out the window. You had a blue one, you dumbass.
Yeah, it's
Wait
super
3
stupid
hours
because
to
it's one of
change
the
it.
most powerful moments of the first game is deciding what you're gonna be.
And it's just like, when I remember when they announced that they were bringing this game to PS4 eventually, and we all kind of laughed. And now, like, I kind of laughed, and I was like, "It barely runs on PS5. La, let's laugh at it." But now looking at it, I'm like, you know what? I can see why they're porting this to PS4 because apart from graphically, this is a PS4 PS4 video game where you've got the classics, Kyle. You've got your favorites from the PS4 generation. Let's list them all out on the board. You've got the tight spaces that take way too fucking long to crawl through because it's hiding the next load zone area from Final Fantasy VII Remake, the fucking classics. Yeah. It's got your kind of doors and elevators you have to fucking press a button for and wait for them to lower or open so that they can load the next area. It's got all that stuff.
How are the door textures though?
Oh, they're fine. Don't you worry about it.
Oh, good. Oh, thank God.
But they have this thing.
Textures are also top tier.
Yeah. The only issue that I have with the presentation of this game is that they only rendered the cutscenes, or they only have the cutscenes play in 30 FPS. So if you're playing in performance mode like me, the game slows down, the black bars come in, and you can just the cutscenes half what you're used to. So it's really weird, and there's like this stutter between them, and it's like, again, it still feels rough 6 months out, like however many months after the game came out. And I'm like, okay, I was not expecting it to still have, like when the camera swaps, say you're focusing on Cal and it switches to Grease, you'll have like a flash of white light happen because the game isn't loading textures in properly, so it has trouble when it's swapping the camera. And I'm like, I thought you would have fixed this by now. I feel like this game needed more time in the oven. And I'm playing this game 7 months after it came out, and I'm still like, this game still needs time in the oven. It's a spy, and I don't know if I'm being overly harsh or overly critical on it, because when I've got so used to over the past 4 years playing a game on launch and if it's a bit buggy, I'm like, okay, this is my fault for playing this game for a podcast on day one. These things will be ironed out in 6 months, and most people aren't going to have these experiences, right? So now, in my head, I'm always like, I never get to play a game 6 months after release, very rarely. So now I'm going, oh, it'll be fixed. This is great. And it's still buggy. And I had people disappear, Hunter. I've had people disappear.
You still had disappearing monsters and stuff. Nice.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay. It's fine. And I've not got into the heart of the story yet. It's the classic kind of, we were a team, now we've broken up and everybody's fucking sad. And
honestly, the dumbest direction to take the beginning of this game, because the best part of the first one was the dynamic of the team that kept being cool throughout. Like, even when they added Marin near the end, it's like, oh, I wish you had shown up sooner. That way we could get more of you. And then I was excited to be like, oh, now the whole game with these guys. And the idiots at the beginning showed up, and I'm like, who are you? Why are you here?
And it's like,
I didn't ask for you.
And it's like,
boat smells.
Yeah, he does smell. He's a bit stinky. But once I got back to Greece, I'm like, oh, here's a character I like again. And oh, they're actually having dialogue that I don't hate and want to punch my fucking ears out with. That's good. And it's like, I've started to get back into it now where I'm like, okay, the story's getting to a point where I'm starting to go, okay, I can see myself enjoying this again. Because I always come back to looking at this game and I'm like, I don't know. Like, Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor never truly clicked with me, and I never understood why. And now playing this after playing a couple of Souls games, I now understand why I don't like it. It's because these Jedi games, they're great. They're pretty good. But they want to have their fucking cake and eat it too. They want to be everything. They genuinely don't know when to stop. And the biggest example I can give to you is with the first major boss fight in this game against the Ninth Sister. Because what happens is, this is a kind of tutorial Dark Souls-ish kind of fight, Cal. It's not as difficult as Dark Souls game. Mm-hmm. It really isn't. But it's kind of like that. And it has like 3 different phases to it. There's cutscenes in between all of them because it wants to be the cinematic Uncharted game. And then I was dumb. I didn't rest before the fight. I had no stim packs, so I died about in the final third of it, right? I respawn. It's like a Dark Souls game. I respawn. I have to go back into the arena. But unlike a Dark Souls game that goes, okay, dumb fuck, we're just going to go again. The game, because it's a story progression thing, has to play the intro cinematic again. And I have to hold circle to skip. And then I get a third of the way through the health bar. And instead of going straight into the second phase like a other Dark Souls game, I've got to watch that cutscene again. And I've got to hold the skip button. And then I got to do it again. And then hold the skip button. And I'm like, this is my problem with this video game is... If you want to be a narrative-ass narrative game, you go and be a narrative-ass narrative game. You go and do that and you excel at that. If you want to be fight hard bosses with lightsaber game, let me fucking do that without interrupting me every 5 fucking seconds to have a 2-minute cutscene. Because the amount of times that I'm just like, hell yeah, time to be a Jedi and whack things, and it stops me and goes, no, you've got to watch a cutscene of this. And I'm like... I want to do the whacking. I don't want to watch this.
I feel like there's a better way to accomplish that kind of thing without making cutscenes happen with the life bar, like at fractions of the life bar. You should give them 3 life bars that checkpoint every time you like beat one.
That's what I'm saying. If you
And
want
like
to
make
be
the life bars quicker to take down than
if you
that
want
way
to
it's
be
not
that
a
narrative
ridiculous...
game, stop me for a cutscene every a third of the way through the fight, and then checkpoint me there. Don't then go, oh, you dumb fuck, you died at the end because you didn't rest because you thought that this game's bit too easy so far anyway. So then you have to run back to the fucking area and then watch all the cutscenes again. I'm like, no. Like, in Dark
It's
Souls,
like a
you walk
PS2
into a
game.
boss area. If it has a cutscene, it plays it at the start. Well, fellow foul tarnish, you shall not smite me. Fucking whack,
Yeah.
right? There you go. Their jobs are good. And you die to Godric, you're a dumb fucker. You walk back into Godric, he doesn't then go, "Oh, you foul tarnish," and then we have to fucking hold circle to skip the cutscene again. No,
Could you imagine?
you just go straight
Imagine
into a fight.
imagine a Dark Souls game with unskippable cutscenes that repeat themselves every time. No one would like them.
Oh, that'd be really funny.
It'd be
I
so
just
funny.
don't think, and I don't
Someone go
know,
mod that on a PC version.
and I don't know if this is just me, Hunter, and I don't know how you feel about this. I don't think the whole Dark Souls-esque design of bonfires and boss fights that are like this, where you die and die and die again, work for a game where the narrative of you dying doesn't actually... Like, Cal Kestis
It doesn't
does
feed
not...
into it.
In the
Yeah,
narrative, does
like,
not die a single time because he's a fucking
the
Jedi and he's sick.
narratively speaking, with the Ninth Sister confrontation, it's there to demonstrate that Cal is so much further than he was
In the
at
first game.
even at the end of the first game, because
Yeah.
the lore accurate Cal Kestis in that fight mollywopped the Ninth Sister and kicked her off the edge of the cliff.
Yeah. And I think, like, I found a fight against, I can't remember, I was in a cave looking for some miners, right? And there was this big...
You found the Rancor or something?
The Rancor, yeah. And I was getting my ass handed to me, but I did eventually beat it. But that fight felt so much better because there wasn't a fucking cutscene.
It was just a surprise.
It played the
Yeah.
cutscene once at the start, and the guy peekabooed round the rock, he broke the rock, and then I started mollywhopping him and died, right? Then when I jumped back into the area, it didn't do what it does with its main story fights, where the cutscene plays again. Surprise, it's the Rancor for the 60th time. No,
Yeah.
it just lets you fight him straight away. And I'm like, this is more fun. I like this more.
Yeah,
this is good.
I can see what you mean, where the narrative thing is at odds with itself, and it's kind of like how in Rockstar games, the freedom that they present to you in the open world is always at odds with the restrictions they put on you in main missions.
Or it's like, yeah, it's like you're supposed to be this terrible person, right? But then it's like the way I usually play them. I think that's why they added Trevor, just so people could go, I feel like being a terrible person, swaps to Trevor, right? Where it's like, yeah, people in GTA are terrible people, but I could never imagine Franklin or Michael going on a fucking public shootout. Like, no, I can't ever imagine that. There's that kind of... And I think that's why I've always jived with the Red Dead games more, because as an outlaw, you can toe that line as a character where it's like you could be a terrible, terrible human being as Arthur Morgan, or you could be a respectful person for the law that only breaks it when he has to. You can tie that line with those games a lot better. And I feel like that's my main issue with Jedi, is the story's great. If only the people at Respawn could, tell the people who make actual Star Wars how to write a narrative that is at least a tiny bit engaging. That'd be crazy, like genuinely. Because I still like Cal Kestis as a character. I still like Grease as a
Best
character.
Jedi.
I still like the idea of this game. It's just, it's more of the same of Fallen Order. It is just more Fallen Order, which is fine. But I have played other games since Fallen Order, and now looking at it with a 2023 lens, it doesn't impress me in the same way that Fallen Order originally did, if that makes sense. And it's not done anything to combat my nitpicks and my gripes with it that I originally had back in 2019. It wasn't that long
Yeah.
between games, realistically. It was 3.5 years, because it was end of 2019 to mid 2023. It wasn't that long. Which is
I see
weird
what
for
you
a
mean, but
AAA game. And you can tell that it's not been that long, because it is very much more of the same.
yeah, the state of how it launched is probably a good indicator of maybe the
Could have
it
used
was a
some more
little short,
Mm.
but yeah.
100%. But no, I do
But like,
aim. I'm gonna keep playing, and I'm gonna see how it. I'm hoping that I jive with it more, because especially when I start seeing Sia again and Merrin, characters that I care about, and the story kind of starts picking the pace up more. Maybe then I'll start enjoying it more. But
yeah,
so
like
far,
the game has real good moments. Like even as many games as I've played in between it since then, and all of that, there are still some spots that I actually still think about every now and then.
well, that's good, and I'm hoping that when I come to the end of it, I'm like, oh no, I can see that they've made steps in why this is better than Fallen Order, where I can see where I'm like, okay, this is what I was looking for from more of a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. Because right now, it's just more Fallen Order with slightly snappier combat, and open world, I wouldn't call it open world, I'd more call it open sections, where the original is very linear
Open
corridors,
area,
and now
yeah.
it's more open. But I will also say there's still no fucking balance whatsoever in the fucking combat types, I feel like, half the time. Especially now, because you can only do 2. Like, you can only carry 2 with you. I'm like, damn,
Oh,
bro.
yeah.
Like, why would I not keep using dual... Like, why would I not use the fucking
What
2
kind of
separate
loser would just use
lightsabers,
the
one in each
singular
hand?
blade?
Yeah, like... Oh yes, I won't. I'll just use one lightsaber. I won't use the one in each hand and go. Like, the game's like, oh yes, with the single lightsaber, you can fight with a lightsaber, and then it's like, ah yes, with the 2 in one hand, you can hold triangle and dodge shit whatever you want, and then just whack people like that. And I'm like, well, why would I not do that?
Yeah, I
God.
feel like
Like the Splatoon dual guns.
Yeah,
the one that they
basically.
Give you a dodge roll.
the two
Yeah.
that they introduce later, I feel like are both fun to play around with, at least. Like, with the exception of the singular lightsaber, I found fun to be had in all of them, and it's like the singular lightsaber is fine, but I never wanted to go back to it because it's for chumps.
I don't remember this. I don't know if this is a small detail. I don't know. Did you ever notice this, Hunter? In the original Fallen Order, did the lightsaber work the same? Because what I
Uh,
noticed was, in this game, if you're using just the single lightsaber, he still has the second one on his hilt. And then he goes back and pulls it out like that. I thought in the original he just had a fucking magic saber that just had, like, he was always carrying it, and then the second half just came out of it, and then he just pulled it off like that.
I think I think it got modified in between games because the double swords, like holding 2 of them,
It's
a
now an
piece
actual
there.
stance instead
It's
of
an actual stance instead of just an attack. Before, I think he kind of grafted the saber that Seer had to the one to
yeah.
Jaro's, and he like pulled them apart and whatever.
That's what
Now
I
one
thought,
of
because I was
them
like, the
just
animation looks different. I also do like the dual thing is quite fun. Just wacky
yeah,
is quite fun.
yeah. It ended up being overall my favorite stance was just the two of them there. It was real satisfying.
It's yeah. Well, like I say, I'm feeling all right on it. So I feel all right. I feel like I say, it could be doing for me from a gameplay perspective. It could be doing more. I will tell you this though: the fucking having the prequel droids in the desert area, fucking hilarious. Like genuinely, like the prequel droids are so funny.
God, the having them around is hilarious.
The one that stands on the fucking edge of the cliff just talking about admiring the view for a solid minute and a half. He has this dialogue with himself for a minute and a half, and you can just sit there waiting, knowing that you're going to have to kill him to pass through, but he's just like, wow, look at this view. And he's like,
every time
I could admire this view for hours.
Guys, I always put off like actually engaging the combat as long as possible because listening to them banter was great. Like, this is a very well written game, if nothing else, aside from how they start it.
The start is very fucking bad. But like I say, hopefully I jive a bit more as I play through it. But first 4 hours it's more Star Wars, and I like, if you loved Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, you will love this game. You'll have a blast. If you were like, it's alright, you'll probably think this one is also alright. Hopefully, you'll have some things to change my mind later on. We'll find out. I'll keep you guys updated as I go through it. I'm hoping I can finish it in like a week or two because I really don't want it to take forever. But we'll see. I'm a busy person.
Oh, it only took me like a weekend.
Yeah.
And some change, so it's not that long. Especially if you ignore all the other stuff.
Oh, but I can't. I've got a goopy goblin brain, dude. I'm gonna.
Yeah, he's got a plat to get.
I've got a plat to get. I can't have
Get
fun.
the
I
plat
must get
later.
Plat. No, no fun. No, all fun only. No fun allowed.
Decide
only
if you like the game first. And
no,
then
only
it.
platinum. No fun. Let's wrap this show up by asking a very important question. One that we've been thinking about for centuries, guys.
Always.
For about
Is there an Xbox
centuries.
Is there an Xbox tax, guys? When
what do we mean by that, Ethan?
So there's been this whole debate going on.
Before
Again,
we
I
get
feel
taken
like
out of context.
Everything's been cycling around the Game Wars this week in this podcast episode. There's been this ongoing conversation in the Xbox community this week about how, in a similar vein that we joked to there being a Nintendo tax of Nintendo games get 10 points more than they deserve, which I think is true in some instances and isn't in others. But, there's this idea in the games industry that people hold Nintendo in a higher regard than other publishers. And now the sane folks over in the Xbox fan base have decided, what if there's the same thing but the opposite for Xbox? So they're basically putting forward, if we were in a court of law here, Kyle, I think their defending argument here, Your Honor, would be that Xbox games don't get reviewed as well as PlayStation and Nintendo games, and that's because big corpos being paid off by everybody that isn't Xbox.
Dude,
and Jeff
big
Keighley,
reviewers keeping Xbox down.
Yeah, keeping Xbox
big
down.
Big corpo holding down
big
Microsoft.
Corpo.
Yeah. And they've been going to lengths. It started this week with just people going, yeah, I think there's a bias against Xbox games, which, I mean, I think there is a slight bias against Xbox games, but that's because for the past decade, there haven't been many good ones. That's the reason, right? It's other than the occasional Forza and, some other little games, there hasn't been many good Xbox games. And people, I think, are looking at Starfield in particular, not getting a nomination for Game of the Year, and going, there's an Xbox bias. And I'm like, no, Starfield was a contentious game. That's why it's not got a Game of the Year nom. It's not rocket science.
I mean, I'll be honest, I thought Starfield was probably going to get an Xbox or get a Game of the Year nomination.
You see, I'm not surprised.
If only just to have the representation for all three consoles.
And I feel like
care about that though.
Yeah, but I do.
The only people that do are fanboys.
I think it would have been cool, Hunter.
And
why would it be Starfield instead of Hi-Fi Rush?
True.
Because no
If
one
anything-
remembers Hi-Fi Rush, Hunter.
I remember Hi-Fi Rush. Ethan
well,
remembers
good for
Hi-Fi
you,
Rush.
you fucking old head.
Kyle's just
Fucking
bitter because his
ancient
PC
gamer,
couldn't
fucking
run Hi-Fi
prehistoric
Rush, dude.
gamer.
Oh
Sit
yeah,
down.
I played Last of Us on the PS3. I am prehistoric.
It's true. How old are you? But here's the thing, right? I don't think there's an Xbox bias. I just think that I'm sorry, Xbox fans, and trust me, at this rate, PlayStation's also going that route. There's not been good game releases for Xbox. There's like even Starfield, a game that I personally really, really liked. Especially the first half of it. Am I right? First half gamer gang, dude. Like, am I right? But you know, I really like Starfield, but I can also understand that that game's contentious as fuck. Not a lot. There are many people that hated Starfield, and I can understand why. It's an old game that it's a boomer game released in 2023. There are so many concepts and ideas that Bethesda could have taken to modernize their RPG systems and just went, nah, dude. Anyone for encumbrance again? Like, no, it's
Not
stupid.
encumbrance.
It's dumb. I feel like there's like, let's be real here, right? If you really think that IGN is getting paid to give Xbox games lower review scores, or any review outlet for that matter, is getting paid to give lower review scores to the competition, you are fucking stupid. And I mean that.
What did they even give Starfield? I don't remember.
They gave it an 8.
They gave Spider-Man an 8.
Yeah.
What's the debate here?
Well, you see,
yeah, but Tears of
Hunter,
the Kingdom got a 9.
Yeah, but Hunter, you see, here's the thing, is because this is the stupid reach that they've gone to, right? Get ready, hold yourself into this. This is because the current parent company of IGN, Hunter, used to, back in the day, also be the publisher of the PlayStation magazine in the US, the distributor for the PlayStation magazine, which means that they're owned by Big Corpo, which means there's a PlayStation bias, Hunter. My favorite part is when Pierre Schneider, who is one of the founders of IGN, then retorted with, not only is it a spin-off of the company, and also IGN was bought a couple of years after they stopped publishing the PlayStation magazine, so there was no gap there. Their previous owner owned Xbox magazine before that, so there's literally nothing here. It's all a load of fucking hyperbole. It's all stupid. But I genuinely do think, I'm like, if anything, doesn't it make more sense for people to pay to make their review scores higher, not other people's lower? Like, if you're gonna believe in some make-believe flat earth nonsense, guys, at least go for the thing that makes sense. Like, come on. Like, if you think that game developers really have time to be spending money to make their fucking review, you really think that if review scores mattered, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 would have sold nothing and the franchise would be dead.
Like,
no one cares.
The higher ups at these studios don't want to spend the money to pay their employees. So there's that. So they wouldn't bother with paying off reviews to
people that don't work for them.
Yeah.
They don't want to pay the people that do work for them.
Yeah.
Let me give
We did it. We solved it.
Let me give you guys a little piece of advice. This is a little piece of advice from Uncle Ethan. You know, I'm 26 now. I'm getting pretty old, dude. I'm fucking boomer. Let me give you some advice, guys.
Lay it on me.
Console warrior, console fanboyism is fucking cringe as shit, dude. Like, genuinely. It's like, if your personality... Well, first of all, if your personality is video games, like, take it from me. I love you. Maybe find another hobby. Because I feel like anyone basing their entire personality on one thing is pretty stupid, and you should find your own individuality instead of attaching yourself to a brand or a particular part of your personality. I think that's a stupid idea. Yeah. But the whole idea of going, oh, I own a PlayStation or I own an Xbox, that means that Sony or Microsoft are my dad and I will die on the cross. I will die on the fucking hill to get to stand by them thick and thin. They're corporations. They aren't your friend. If Sony does something shit, don't support it. If Xbox does something shit,
Yeah.
don't support
Yeah.
it. I just don't understand. If you're like, I just don't understand. I can understand having a nostalgia with a platform, right? I can understand having a nostalgia. Like, I grew up on PlayStation. I grew up with Nintendo handhelds, so I'll always have a soft spot for certain franchises and certain games, and I'll have a preference. I play stuff on PlayStation most of the time because that's where my friends are. That's where I've built up my stupid trophy obsession. That's not healthy in the slightest, right? I have reasons, but at the same time, I'm not sitting there going, Xbox smells, PlayStation rules, fuck you, 8 out of 10 on IGN, baby, like,
Oh
let's
no,
go.
we've spent this podcast in this past year. I feel like has spent a decent amount of time calling PlayStation out for being stupid.
And we've called Xbox stupid for being monopoly, like, fucking, for causing
Yeah.
monopolies to happen, and it's... I hate the elitism, and I hate the idea of everyone going, oh yes, please consolidate more, go on Xbox, you can do it. Or the same way with PlayStation. Oh, the Activision acquisition's over, PlayStation, stop buying people, buy Square, buy Sega, buy this. And like, fuck off, like, genuinely, do you not have anything better to do with your life? Like, honestly, do you not?
Yeah, it's stupid.
Mhm.
It's stupid. Is there a potential Xbox bias in the games industry? Probably, but it's probably also due to the fact that there's been a lot of negatives surrounding Xbox. In the same way that I've noticed in the past couple of years, there's a lot more negativity building up around PlayStation and its brand because of the stuff they're starting to do and that people don't agree with. In the
Yeah.
same way that there was negativity around Nintendo during the Wii U era because the 12 people that owned a Wii U weren't happy with what was happening at the time. You know, it's like...
It's just
It's
how
all...
it goes.
It's just how it is. And I feel like people, like, just need to stop fucking acting like they're 12. You don't, like, Xbox isn't your life. PlayStation isn't your life. Touch grass, go outside, go and have a fucking good time, dude. And if you want to play God of War, you knock yourself out, dude. But don't die on that hill. There's no need. Jim Ryan's not going to miss you. He's going to go and retire and still not know what Gran Turismo is. Like, you know, he's gonna like...
Neil
None of them are
Druckmann
your
will be
friend.
just fine if you don't jump to his defense.
I genuinely, I was never a console kind of fanboy, as it was when I was growing up, and I never understood it. But I feel like in the past 3 or so years, mainly since we started doing this podcast again, I think we're the problem, guys. I think we're the problem. But like in the past,
Oh, yeah.
this latest console generation in particular, I feel like the console rivalry and these stupid people, these literal like 2 brain celled fucking Timmies on the internet that are just like screaming back and forth with each other. I feel like that's grown again. Like, I feel like 5 years ago, this wasn't this bad. I feel like it's getting worse again. I feel like we're devolving.
I mean, 5 years ago, I don't think Xbox was able to make much of a case for itself as far as being a quality product.
How dare you, dude? I'll have you know. We loved Forza whatever, Forza 5. I don't know. But
Or well, no, 5 years ago was a little further, or is not as far back as I thought it was. At the beginning of the last console cycle, Xbox was in a bit of a struggle there, and they conceded that one and spent the rest of the time making Game Pass
but
as their thing. But
it's just, I
there
feel
was
like
less of a leg to stand on, is what I'm saying.
I get it, but I also am like, again, why do you like, what is it? If
Taking
I'm on
sides is stupid.
it's,
Buy the machine you think will help you the most. Find your enjoyment out of the games.
yeah, or buy both if you want both, or buy none
Yeah.
if you want to be a PC gamer. And you do you make your own choices.
Or
I'm
buy
fine
all
with
of
you.
them if you're
Buy all,
Ethan.
buy all of them if you're Ethan. Own an Xbox Series X, a Series S, 2 PS5s, and
2
3
PS5.
Nintendo Switches if you're fucking brain dead, okay? If you're stupid like me and regrets buying all of them, then go for it. You knock yourselves out. But no, it's like, I feel like I spend too much time on the internet sometimes when I feel like it's like, and if I feel like I'm doing that, and then I see people on Twitter like that, I'm like, fucking hell. Like, you genuinely need a hobby. Like, genuinely, go outside, find something else. You
Take
don't
up
need to
knitting. It's
take up
getting cold
knitting.
out.
Pick
Yeah,
up knitting.
take up knitting.
Or
And, you
better
know,
yet, pick up game design and design your own games for Xbox.
that's a great
Yeah.
idea, dude.
Yeah, dude.
That's a
And
great
then
idea.
you can be on Hunter's year-end 2024 list of best indie games.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, like,
Yeah.
well, yeah. Final tip as well. Just don't ever, like, well, I don't say don't ever listen to people, but it's like, if you're a fan of PlayStation, right? Don't just go to the 3 fucking people who only talk about PlayStation for PlayStationNation.org, right? Who are like, oh yeah, fucking yeah, and build this up. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Naughty
Same,
Dog is the best studio ever and never does anything wrong.
same for
Absolutely.
Xbox, right? Where it's like, the amount of people that I'm like, oh yeah, I love you, like, who are in that kind of, I don't want to call it a cult, but it's very cultish like behavior when everyone's like gathered around and like, yes, we go to Xbox, there's the best.net and listen to Joe Timmy over here who only plays Xbox games, who says, oh, I've never played God of War, don't have time for it, I'm too busy sucking off Phil Spencer here to play God of War. I'm like, no, this is stupid, don't do that. Look for a balanced argument.
Yeah, dude.
Because
Get
if you're gonna
different
find
perspectives
bias,
on things.
if you're gonna find bias anywhere, you're gonna find bias on a Nintendo game from NintendoLovers.net. You're gonna find the PlayStation
Nintendo
bias.
Life.
Yeah.
I'm not calling them out by the name.
I will.
Okay, you do what you want. I like the people at Nintendo Live. Thumbs
I
up
don't
from
know the
me.
people over there.
I think I don't ever go to reviews. I don't ever go to Nintendo Live for reviews, but I think their editorials are pretty damn good. But you know, same with like, well, there's plenty of them, right? There's like there's so many. There's
Push
so many
Square
websites
for
that
PlayStation.
Push Square,
I don't
Windows
know what-
Central, Xbox
Yeah.
On. Fucking, there's so many of them, and I'm like, it's all good. If that's your
Y Button
community,
Deluxe.
if that's your community, go for it. But don't necessarily go to them for a review of a specific game and not expect an idea of bias, because there's bias in everything.
Yeah.
That's also why I recommend, if you actually care about video game reviews or you want an actual opinion, go out there and find people.
Come to us.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying us specifically, but go out there. Go
Find
and
Go to
someone whose tastes align with
hotgamersonly.com.
yours.
Yeah, well, we're a better place than most, because if you're going for a review, it'll either be me or Hunter or Kyle, and you probably, if you listen to our podcast, you probably know the kind of games we like. You can get an informed opinion based on the games we like. If you go to IGN, whoever wrote the last Pokemon game review will not be the person that wrote the Pokemon game review from before or before that or any other RPG, because it's just people. There's not that kind of attachment there. You don't know what the games the reviewer likes. You don't know what vibes with them, what doesn't. Go to the YouTube channel.
That's just
go
what
to
they got
Skill Up, Go
assigned.
to whatever you want. Like, you know, there's so many YouTube channels that do game reviews where it's just one person or a couple of people, and you can get that kind of idea, what they like, that perspective. I feel like that works a lot better. Go to YouTube, go and find those smaller creators, or there's plenty of larger creators that are 1 or 2 man teams that you can kind of go, hey, I know what you like. You guys hated Elden Ring, and I also hated Elden Ring. I know where to go. I kid, I jest, but you know, it's stupid. If you like a video game, who cares what the number is, dude? I liked Starfield. I don't care that it got like a 2.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It didn't get a 2, it got 85, but you know.
My game of the year didn't get nominated for anything. So,
Hell yeah. That's the spirit.
Schwoops.
Anyway, on that note, I'm wrapping it up because I'm done ranting and my voice hurts, and that's always a good time to stop. So yeah, I can't find the thing. Oh, there it is. Our links are on screen. Around about now, if you want to go and follow us on a social media platform that may or may not be called Twitter in the future again, who knows?
Yell at us when our podcast feed is slow.
Oh yeah, please do. If this
Please
isn't on
do.
if this isn't on podcast services and you somehow listening to the end of a podcast that isn't on your podcast service, please do let us know. I am so sorry. But it was funny though. It was kind of funny.
It is like I get notifications from Spotify when the episode goes up because I follow the podcast, and I don't remember getting one on Monday, but I also don't remember paying any attention to it. So I'm like, ah, neat.
I was barely able to acknowledge that the YouTube one went up
Yeah.
because I didn't go to work on Monday. So like
Mm,
this last week was all sorts of time isn't real for me.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't have Spotify anymore because I cancelled my membership because they upped the charge. Fuck you, Spotify, but please keep hosting our podcast. Thank you. But the price went up, so I stopped paying for it, and I
Mm.
got like, because I had some earbuds or whatever. I'm like, I'll get 6 months free of Apple Music, so I'll just use that for now. And I don't listen to podcasts on Apple Podcasts. You can, it's all right. I used to, but I didn't. I used to use Spotify, but now I don't have a reason to go to Spotify, so I'm like, I just never check. But hey,
I also don't use Spotify for music or anything, so I've never checked like
I'm
the
just too attached to
podcast
it at this
feed.
point.
you see, I
I
was.
still
I'm
have
in
my
too deep
music
to quit.
library downloaded to my many devices. All of the stuff I want to listen to is in this phone.
I'm like that with soundtracks. Kyle, literally the only reason was because I got 6 months with my AirPods for Apple Music, and I'm like, well, that's 6 months of Spotify I don't have to pay for. And now there's another
Yeah.
deal with PlayStation at the moment where you get 6 months. There's a 6 month trial with PlayStation if you sign in to your account with on the PlayStation app. So I'm gonna wait because that's for a whole year. That's doesn't expire for a whole year. So I'm gonna wait till this 6 months is over, let it lapse, and then
God.
sign up for PlayStation, baby. Ethan's never put. I'm not paying for Spotify in a while. They're gonna have to beg for me to come back, dude.
It is annoying that they just upped the price for no reason.
It is, and it's also annoying because
Without
Spotify
adding
is
anything
the most
else.
convenient, in my opinion, of
very
the of
Netflix
the
of them.
music
Yeah.
apps. It's the one I'm most used to. So, oh well. Anyway, let's wrap it up. That's enough talk for today. Thank you ever so much for listening and watching this week. Next week, we'll be back with our predictions for the Game Awards 2023. So come on over, because you probably heard 6 million predictions on who's going to win. But have you heard predictions of what's going to get fucking announced? No? Well, come on over. We're going to talk all about it next week.
Have you heard about Jeff's war crimes?
We'll talk about it next week. Come back to the HGO podcast, the only podcast that predicts the number of war crimes Jeff Keighley will commit at the Game Awards 2023. You can put that on it. You can put that on the fucking billboard, Jeff, if you want. Dude. You can put that on.
He's already starting with one.
It's true. I feel like Jeff should have like a little counter on the side where it's like number of war crimes last year, and it'd be like 3, and then it's like The Simpsons where it's like, okay, next year you want to aim for lower than 3, Jeff. Can you do it? Can we get it down to 0? No? Okay. But we'll talk about it next week. But yeah, you'll have to wait for that same time, same place next week for all that. But until then, have an awesome week. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.
See ya.
Toodaloo.